Hi guys. Oops, we had some sound issues as usual. Welcome to another weekly MSI Open demo. Today we have some interesting items on the agenda, which are not really demos, but some kind of discussions. And I'm not totally sure, but maybe Rodrigo would be still able to demo his store or not. So please let me know, and you can jump in any moment if you wish to do it this time. So, to start, I guess I'll give some general update on what's happening on the MSI track, and then we'll proceed with source item configuration question by Alessandro. So the general update is that we are still working on publishing the general available MSI 112 packages. We have finished the main test cycle and additional test cycle, so everything is apparently green, which is really great. And packages are already deployed to the internal quality repo, so I guess we'll be able to publish them maybe next week. We'll be working on that so that MSI is released maybe even slightly earlier than Magento 2 release itself. Also, we've put quite a lot of effort in store pickup. This week we have managed to merge the Alexander's pull request, which introduced the store pickup shipping method. This pull request is really important as it's pretty much unlocks all of the future work on the checkouts, and we already have a first pull request by Creative Style, which is targeting front-end implementation for the store pickup. Currently, it's in a draft state because it's still work in progress and it's had a heavy dependency on the shipping method. But I suppose that next week Mateusz will be able to join and demo how that works already. Also, there were some changes to the milestones on the repository. Currently, they represent different categories for the tickets. The idea behind this is to simplify tracking of different kind of tracks, which may be interesting for someone like store pickup is separately and some bug fixes, bundle product and stuff like that. And also the open source team, which is working on the core repository, they set up a nice project for us, which is managed pretty much automatically. It's still in pretty messy state because we have to do some manual work to kick it off and make it in a better shape, but this is what we have now and we are working to improve it. So I think this is pretty much all of the major update for this week. And now we can proceed with Alessandro and his updates on the source item configuration.
Hello,
Hey.
everyone. I'm slightly stepping back to development in the MSI project finally, and I'm trying to get this issue, which is issue number 1486 regarding inventory configuration, which was already developed by Guy. Sergey, but I realized that he didn't follow all the directives that were given, so I'm trying to refactor everything, and I'm trying to do things based on vertical slices. So what I wanted to do was to try to provide the service for say backorders configuration from each level. So the service, the web API, the tests. And at the moment, I'm stuck at deciding how to define the web API interface because it has not been designed, and we have, I think, a couple of possibilities. Let me try to share the screen. Okay. I had to add an extension to. Okay. Here, can you see my screen right now?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is what you're seeing now is the Web API definition for the backorder configuration, basically setters, based on a first approach, which would use a route like this, inventory configuration backorders, SKU, source code, and the method, and so on, depending on the scope of the configuration. This would lead to a lot of routes because we have 11 configuration options. So this would lead to a lot of routes. And before going on this way, I wondered whether it was better to define inventory configuration route and specializing which kind of operation we have based on the body rather than on the route. So I ask your advice for this kind of question.
Probably we no need that many routes, and for us it's okay to have just the last one. So the inventory configuration backorders,
yes,
with the method post, because depending on all of these parameters like SKU, source code, could be optional depending on the particular scope in which we want to apply this configuration. So that I prefer to stay just with the last option and provide the source code and SKU as a part of the post payload.
Okay, perfect. Last question. May I modify the wiki page to add this kind of specification or?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Definitely you can do that.
Okay, that's if you don't have any further questions, that's basically all on my side.
Do you have any prototype for the post request itself? So
now, this is a lot of there is a lot of things to do. I just started working on this kind of functionality, so I can, if you prefer, I can submit an initial pull request, a work in progress pull request. There is still a few code. I'm trying to cover the code with integration tests so far. So you already see some tests here that cover basically setting and getting this value from configuration table. If you prefer, I can push this code on. Sorry, I already pushed this code, but I can submit a pull request and we can discuss on this pull request for further development.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. And
also because we will have something to decide about the UX UI side, because we have to discuss this maybe with product owner.
We have a product owner on the call today, so
okay.
I'm pretty sure you could just share your questions. Maybe Mark could be.
Okay.
Sure.
I was not prepared for that, but if you want, I can pass and maybe at the end of the call get again on to show what's the kind of question we have on the UI point of view.
Yeah,
sure. Or if you want, we can always do a separate grooming meeting if you need to prepare. That works for us too.
Not to bother the people, right? I'm okay with it.
Still, I believe this is pretty interesting track. So maybe it's even possible in the scope of the demo. But again, Alessandro, it's pretty much up to you. If you feel like you want to do it another time, it's totally fine.
Okay. No, I prefer to prepare the questions, not to waste
Yeah, sure.
Mark's time. So okay.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Alessandro. That already looks good, that we have some kind of APIs in development. And I think the next point on the agenda would be Igor, who has come up with an idea to use Sagas for exceptional cases. For example, when order is placed or cancelled or processed in an incorrect way and exception is thrown, the Saga would allow us to compensate the created reservation back to the initial state. So I guess Igor will shed some light on this.
Share my screen. Yeah, it should be better now. So, actually, Eugene already told the main idea behind the changes. So, like, we had a chat with Paul Huckman, who currently released some MSI extensions, and they're currently working for particular MSI customization. And you can see this thread in the MSI Slack channel. And the particular problem which happened to Paul, that for some particular orders, they experienced next issue, so that some of the orders being like, give me a second. Probably I'm not sharing now, but I will find the precise. Yeah, I will find the precise image. So this is the state of the database on Paul's project, and you can see, for example, that for particular event placement, for particular order placement, the transaction being compensated twice, once, along with shipment creation, and the second time. And the main root cause for this issue is generally the exception which is thrown at the time of their shipment creation. So the exception actually initiated not by MSI by itself, but by either sales or some order mechanism. And based on the conversation we had with Paul, so the exception actually is pretty much expected. But what is not expected from the Paul side was that the reservation mechanism is not sharing the transaction scope. So that when we are making the rollback regarding that order placement, we are not compensating the compensated transaction for the reservation. And this as a side effect for us, for MSI, it creates for each of those attempts for shipment creation, we are ending up with creating reservation again and again. So that as a result, we have the mess on the reservation, and it affects the whole sellable quantity of the product. So that I created the dedicated ticket for that, where I propose to create the Saga. So it is pretty much what we want to do in our activity for the service isolation. So the main idea that we will the main issue here is that we can't make the single scope for our transaction, and we can't combine the shipment transaction, and we can combine reservation creation in the same scope of the database transaction, because potentially reservation should be created in the scope of one database, in the scope of the one domain, and the shipment is supposed to be created in the scope of another one. So that it should be done like this. We're supposed to have two local transactions combined in the scope of one business event, and if there are gonna be some problem happen with the shipment creation, we just need to compensate our compensational transaction. So this is the main idea of Saga. So in our, like, simply saying, in our catch block of the exception, which handles the shipment creation, we need to compensate via the Saga mechanism of the compensational reservation which we created. For reservation. So this is one ticket I wanted to show you, and I believe this is pretty much all. So we have a ticket created. I believe if there would be volunteers who wish to step in and work on this, because pretty important from the data consistency point of view. And currently, Paul decided to use, at least based on our conversation, he decided to use our CLI reservation tool, which is supposed to overcompensate these problems and this inconsistency, which appeared as a result of this issue. Probably, I hope the next week he will share with his update and whether that helped him or not. But currently we have this ticket, so if there would be volunteers, I believe these volunteers can contact you again to discuss the particular implementation and the particular architecture, how it can be built. Another thing I wanted to highlight during this meeting is that we had a chat also in MSI Slack channel with one of those guys who make the MSI customization. And after the chat, we had a chat with Steve Kukla, who's Magento Magento sales team representative. And Steve really liked the idea that it would be cool to add additional column for the sales order grid in Magento admin panel. So that column will highlight what particular sources been used to fulfill the order. And it because based on his experience and based on what he heard from merchants, it would be better it will introduce a clarification and will introduce better visibility for the order grid page, because for many merchants it's really valuable information, and currently we just provide an ability to see what source has been used if merchant will just narrow down to particular order page and see on the order detail page what exactly source has been used. But this information currently not provided in the scope of the order grid. So Steve asked whether it's possible to implement it in the scope of the MSI. So I just created the ticket so Mark can evaluate it, make a decision on the upcoming grooming, whether it makes sense or not, and apply the according prioritization for this. And the last but not least, so this is pretty interesting because we had a big chat with guys from Next.js. So they're currently working on MSI customization, and they made a write-up which they published 3 days ago. And in the scope of this write-up, they describe their particular business case, and actually the main The main issue they wanted to highlight that they brought their particular business case when they have two warehouses, one of those in Germany and another one in French. They have pants and shorts, which are located on German warehouse. They have just pants on the French warehouse, and they, for their particular business case, they wanted to provide an ability for a German website to sell just items allocated on German warehouse. But for French website, they wanted to provide an ability to sell pants from French source and shorts from German source. But it shouldn't be possible to sell pants from German source if the customer come to French website. So that they try to describe two possible solutions. Like, for example, if you have the German website which is assigned to the German stock, and along with that the German stock like assigned to one German source, and the same, pretty much the same setup for French website stock and source. And in this case, they just showing that it's not possible to accomplish their business requirement, that they want to deliver shorts from the German source for customers coming to French website. But when they are making assignment for the French stock to German source, they now can sell pens from German source, but this is not what they want to accomplish. And as a workaround for this particular case, they introduce a source which is called German for French source, and they allocated for the French stock, they now pointing to this German to French source, and you can see how it's allocated. So the German to French source contains, actually it replicates t-shirts only. But the problem with this setup is that they have data duplication between the German source and the German for French source, because German source is kind of more broader. It contains both t-shirts and pants, while the German for French source contains only shorts. So that if the order if the shipment will imply just shorts, they need to update data in both sources, D source and D for French source. So that they make a conclusion that there is something wrong with MSI, and we have a chat with these guys here, so that I describe the better way how the particular setup can be created for them, and the correct and the probably ideal segregation here would be to create 3 different sources and put create the German source. So the German source will contain just pens, contain French source, and the French source will contain just pens as well, and create another source which would be probably physically located in Germany, but this source will allocate just shorts. And regarding the stock to source assignment, each stock will have 2 sources assigned to them. Like the German stock will have source 1 and source 3, and the French stock will have like source 2 and the source 3. And in this case, we don't have data duplication, and we can place order to either one of those stocks, and like customer from French can be making delivery of shorts from Germany. So this case, why I wanted to highlight this case really illustrate how MSI is flexible, but if you don't apply it correctly, you can end up with really serious problem with data consistency. Because in their particular case, they provided the architecture which helped to accomplish the business goal, but in reality, all the orders in the scope of which the T-shirt supposed to be delivered, the quantity per source item should be synchronized between Deutsch source and Deutsch for French source, because we have the duplication of the shorts quantity here and here, and in fact we have like the source item quantity. We have the two source item objects, but in fact they represent the single source item which they have in reality. And the possibility of the inconsistency is very high here, so that like you need to avoid of such customization as much as possible. So this is probably pretty much all from my side. So this were like 3 different business cases and 3 different stories which we discussed during this week with guys from MSI community, and they're pretty interesting.
Igor, I think I have a question on Sagas, which you started with, and that question is, do we have any technical design or some technical reference, maybe, which would be used in core when you are working on the service isolation so that MSI can be aligned with the solutions right away?
Actually, we don't have particular design because even theoretically there are 2 main design patterns which could be applicable for Sagas. First one is orchestration based, like in this slide you can see it could be orchestration based. This means that we have the orchestrator kind of like the vending machine or the state pattern. So there is some controlling point which proceed from one operation to another, like let's consider, for example, order placement. So we have the decision-making point, and this point makes sure that each particular small transaction is finished successfully, and then the internal state switch to another one, and we can proceed to another local transaction. And after all the local transaction would be fulfilled, we can complete the whole business transaction. So it is possible, but here what the cons we are ending up here is that we have the one point of failure, and we supposed to have like one orchestrator which will control all the internal local transactions. Another idea is the choreography. So the choreography is actually kind of peer-to-peer transactions which communicate to each other. So this is much better from the scalability point of view, but it's a little bit more complicated to synchronize between all of those transactions and to check whether the whole business transaction was completed successfully. So we are still considering which approach is better, like in general, but I believe for each particular case we will choose particular implementation of Saga. So here we can discuss the one which is more suitable for this particular case. I believe in this particular case it would be pretty much simplistic, so that we don't have a lot of local transactions, but we have just one like here we have just two transactions. The first one is the shipment creation, and we supposed to track how the shipment creation finished, and based on those, like actually, I believe we need to track the catch and the exceptions thrown after the shipment creation, and if something went wrong, we need to handle this operation properly via the corresponding compensational transaction. So it should not be really too complex like it is described here, for example, on these slides, but it should be pretty simplistic, and we just need to track all the possible exceptions and all the. So we need to investigate it better on the source code. So whether we have just one or several potential exceptions thrown after the shipment creation, I suppose that it should be pretty much one place, and if it's one, we can just add it there.
Sounds good. Thank you for the information. Okay. Yeah, thank you for information. Maybe anyone has any questions, feel free to drop those on BlueJeans chat or on MSI Slack, or even ask those now.
Igor, can you drop a link to that page that you were showing in the Slack?
What exactly? Because I was showing three different.
About the Sagas.
Okay.
I think the link is also included in the ticket, so it's easy to find. But okay, yeah, I think Igor can do it. Thank you, Lori. And while Igor was talking, Alessandro figured out his UI questions regarding the source item configuration, so I think we can briefly discuss it now. So, Alessandro,
Yes.
the stage is yours again.
Thanks. Let me share again my screen and show you the part of UI that generated all the dots. So here, this is a screenshot taken from the wiki. Do you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Here we have the possibility to define some configuration options at stock level. The question is, since this kind of UI is pretty new, as far as I know, to Magento, the doubt is how do we handle the fact that in this particular case, the merchant could select a stock, change some other options, change the stock again, change other options, do this again and again for each stock. And this information is not saved probably until he clicks done and then saves the whole product page. So what we probably need here is trying to figure out the best possible design, not to confuse the merchant, because, for example, switching between different stocks and changing configuration options doesn't necessarily make it clear that those options are memorized for subsequent save, or maybe they have to be saved upon each change. Maybe we have to add some buttons. So I'm not a UI expert, so what I'm basically asking here is some help from your side to define a better interface that can help the merchant get his data saved correctly without any confusion. Because
Alessandro, so I understand, I guess, the situation. What you're saying is, if they select different stocks and make changes, the nothing's actually saved until they save the product page and close out of that. so that they
yeah,
would.
yeah. The point is that each change that the merchant can do by changing this stock list should be persisted, because this is possible. This is a possible configuration. I mean, for each stock, the merchant can define different option values. This is a detail of product page on the backend. So this is probably not very likely to happen, but it may happen. So we have to find, yes, the proper way to convey the fact that these options can be changed and they will all be saved, not only the last one that you see here in the screen. I don't know if I clarified better.
Yeah, so you're saying right now only the last one they see will be saved.
I believe all of them will be saved, but
Yes,
user may be
yeah,
confused because user does not see
yes,
that
yes.
some of the items are like
This can be
configured, but they are
confusing. Yeah,
absent on the screen.
this can be confusing. Probably, but I repeat, I'm not an expert. Probably some kind of grid or table-like UI could be more clear, just like we have in the source configuration, in the configuration options for source. Let me see if I have an example here. So, okay. So as you can see, for example, here, this is a detail in the product page where for each source we have the possibility for the merchant to specify the options. We have only two options in this case, two configuration options, which is back orders and back orders use default. So it's easy to create such kind of table in the product. And here it's clear that each of these options will be saved. But we will have 11, 9 in this case, because we have 11 minus 2, these two. So 9 options for each stock, and we can have obviously more than one stock. So this is basically a UI problem to solve together with you and with the UI people. Maybe some help from them would be appreciated, because
Okay,
this
sure.
is something probably new to Magento backend UI. So we don't have any other source of inspiration, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I can't think of another area that has
Mm-hmm.
that level of complexity of the settings, or
Mm-hmm.
I guess that many combinations.
Okay.
But we can check with we have Eugene, our designer, that has helped us
Mm-hmm.
with MSI, and of course he knows much more about design, and we can ask his opinion.
Okay. Thank you. That's it.
Yeah, I definitely understand where you're coming from on that, Alessandro. So, Mark, if you want to include me in the conversation with Eugene, I can kind of give some ideas about what he means, and I took some screenshots.
Perfect, I will.
Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you, Alessandro. I believe this was much more productive than we expected initially. At least we are having some conversations kicked off regarding this question. So if we don't have anyone else who would like to ask questions or present something, then it's time to introduce Tom with the weekly quality report once again, like every other week.
Thanks, Eugene. I think we've missed the last week or two, but we're back. Just a brief update this week, a couple of things to highlight. So hopefully you should have my screen there. Let me put this into a presentation.
Yeah, we can see it.
Great. There we go. That's more like it. Okay. So last AMA, what we're talking about, automated testing wise. So this is one of the headline features here. So we're always looking for these lines to chart up. As you can see, between the 24th and the 31st, The total tests in blue and the not automated, so manual tests yet to be automated, have tracked down. Now, the reason for that is not that we have less tests. We, in fact, have about 5 more tests to find in that period, but we have rationalized our testing and test reporting. We're starting to break out integration and web API testing where it's appropriate. So these numbers now give a more accurate reflection of our functional and functional backlog, so that the total number of tests that we're reporting on for this now, until it's broken out further, is the total number of tests that are functional front-end tests, not web API or integration, which is why those numbers have tracked down. But it gives us a true place for our grey automated number to track up to. So these are the new numbers. That's why that is. In coming weeks, if it's necessary or useful, we can also plot sort of the gap that we've taken out there, those web API functional tests. We can track them separately or on a combined graph. But for now, this is just honed down to only functional. That's why the numbers have gone down, but in reality, they really haven't. So that's worth noting. Another point on that, we haven't tracked up. We've tracked 149 to 155 for the automation numbers, but that's happened over sort of the last 3 weeks where we haven't been able to produce reports because I've been out of the office and things. So it wasn't 6 added this week, it's 6 been added over the last 2 weeks. Okay, severity and component. While those numbers have gone down, the proportions are almost identical. So we haven't lost any coverage in our major areas of focus, catalog and sales. In terms of manual testing then, so again, by component, catalog and sales primarily, but what we're looking at with the manual testing, so this is a chart that's all blue for pass. I know people like to use green, but I like to use blue. And what this is showing us is our last regression cycle, we passed all. That's important to know in the fact that we've run 3 individual smaller regression cycles over the last month, along from the 1.1.2 release and forward. And our initial sort of start of the month report back about 3 weeks ago and 4 weeks ago, we were running into somewhere between 5 and 9% failures identified. And now as we rerun everything and fixes are made, we're back to a full pass status for the latest set of executions that we did. So this is just to say it is all green, but that is coming off the back of several failures out of about a month ago. So we have identified and tracked them out, and these regression cycles have been very useful in identifying bugs and then, bringing this back up to a full pass. Otherwise, that's it for this week, and we'll have more next. Unless anyone has any questions, I'll stop it there. Okay, cool. Thanks all.
Thank you, Tom. This is exciting and beautiful graphs as usual. So entertaining to see, even if you don't have any idea about testing, I guess. I think this is time to wrap up our today's call. We were expecting Rodrigo to give a presentation on their implementation for their customer, but unfortunately, due to some technical issues, we're going to have to postpone that to the next week. So please, guys, tune in next week. The demo is going to be big and really interesting because we already have some content for the next Friday. And that's it. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great weekend and have a great rest of the day.